All right, so I am going to go into a quick tutorial, just basically a guide on RNG Manip with Peach. Basically everything you need to know to get going and do this for yourself, to get polls for yourself. Just a high level overview before we get in. Something I'm going to go over is just basically the essentials, like what you need at the bare minimum to get going. Then I'll dive a little bit deeper into the RNG system, kind of understanding how it works, how the tool works, some things about like what you can do to improve your consistency and what to do kind of when things don't go right. But to start off, just the bare minimums, like what do you need to do? What's like the fastest route to get a poll? Like how can you become effective? And it's actually pretty simple. So all you need to do RNG Manip is two things. You need only two things. The first one being Melee. You need to have a copy of Melee, your favorite copy of Melee running, and you need to have this Manip tool open. That is it. Your Melee does not have to be on emulator. It can be console, and this site, it can be run on your phone. It's super accessible. All you need is a way to interface with the vanilla game and then use this tool's interface to kind of track what you're doing in the game. So that leads us into the process of Manip. Like, what does it look like? Every Manip poll basically consists of two steps leading up to it. The first being finding your seed. The second being performing the Manip. Finding your seed is done through the character select screen by doing random character sequences, and advancing the seed is done with Peach in-game. It's just those two steps: find the seed and then advance to the desired location. Those are the two steps you do for every single poll, again and again and again. So to demonstrate, we'll just jump right in. Here I have like a fresh state, fresh game, fresh website. I clicked bombs because I just want to demonstrate that for vanilla Peach. And I'll enter in a random character sequence to find my seed. And so you'll see as I click the characters, they appear on the bottom, the little number to the right there, increments, and you'll see once I hit the required 9 out of 9, it turns green, and I click search. You'll see here, there's the current seed it displays, and I have on my overlay down in the bottom right, this little guy. This is actually the live seed of the game. You can see that matches up as we expect. And so we completed step 1 successfully. We found our seed. Now I can move on to step 2, which is what this stuff is. Step 2 is advancing the seed to our desired location, to our item pool. And that's done, like I said, with Peach in-game. And so there's this action sequence down here. All we need to do is follow what it says down there. Just do the actions with Peach in the game. So let's jump in and do that. The first one here is stage load. That's just getting into the stage. Sometimes it won't be that. Sometimes it'll be just exclusively on the CSS, but this one is in the game. So we'll load in.
Ready, go.
You can see the first action is an up tilt, so we'll do that. And I did exactly one up tilt. That's what this count here is, one up tilt. And the next one is 2 jump fair land. So we'll do that. There's 1, there's 2. All right, so here we are. You can see now the seed at the bottom should line up with what this target event seed is here. And it does, that 99DE35A8. It lines up perfectly. So now our next attempt should be this desired bomb pull. And I'll just exit out here and make a save state so I can demonstrate. We load in, and just like we're expecting, there's our bomb. It's not like a frame perfect thing and break the targets. Once you're in, the bomb's just like, it's stored up, it's ready to go. So long as you don't affect that RNG seed, you can have your bomb. You can even like do some limited stuff. You can, walk around. You can slightly, influence Peach's location, and the bomb will still be there. There's just some things that, like we said before, will change the RNG seed, like those manip actions that we were doing before. But for the most part, your next run will just be ready to go with the bomb, or whatever item you choose. So cool, we pulled it successfully. So now what? It's really simple. It's just the next manip. You do those exact 2 same steps, repeat it. You find your seed and you perform the manip. So here we are. We can do the same thing with our character sequence.
Mr. Game Everyone.
This time you'll notice, however, that it only requires 4. So that turned green. We can click search. This down here updates with our new action sequence. So we'll go to Peach and just do what it says. This one says 3 up smashes, so we'll do that. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and then it says 1 up tilt, so we'll do that. Cool. And then let's do our next attempt. There's our bomb. Glorious. All right. Cool. So that's fine and dandy. We can, do that however many times we want. But what is actually like happening? Like how does this work? Right. And I think that the best way to understand it is like you have this thing in the bottom of this seed, and it's supposed to be random, and it feels random, but it's really not. Really, we know the math behind it. We know exactly what's happening from seed to seed, and it really is like it's a predetermined sequence of numbers. And so if we have a certain number, we'll know exactly what will come next in pretty much any circumstances. And so to kind of demonstrate that, I have this guy up here, and we'll just sort of give a little demo. I'll enter in the current seed that's displayed down the bottom right, CC980DBA, and I will predict with the power of RNG manipulation what the next character will be. It says Bowser. Will it be right?
Bowser.
Wow, it is. All right, let's try again. Yoshi. Wow, okay, let's do another one. Falco, Jigglypuff, Mr. Game & Watch, and Forever Never Never. And so this seed, it seems random when you're using, but it's really something that we can calculate. It's something that we can look at and observe and make judgments on. And so a way you can like kind of represent and think about the seed is like a giant long string of random characters. This is, I just picked a random seed to start from and made a giant list here. And what the tool does is when you enter in a random character sequence, for the first time, it looks for that 9 character sequence and finds our exact location. So you're thinking, okay, why does it have to be 9, right? Well, you can think about, well, okay, if it was just 1, right? If I just put in Zelda, obviously that doesn't really give us a much help because there's a bunch of Zeldas out here. Okay, so what if I did 2? What if I did like Mario followed by Donkey Kong? Oh, that's a little bit better, but if we went far enough, there'd probably be another Mario followed by Donkey Kong soon enough. And so you get longer and longer and longer. And it turns out that 9 is exactly enough to act as like a fingerprint to know your precise location. Once you have a 9 character sequence, that is the only place that 9 character sequence will ever appear, and you know your exact ending seed. Okay, cool. So that's how kind of like the first step works. Then once we know our seed, once we know our location, because we can do this kind of like pre-computing and finding out when the next thing comes, we can also do the same thing that we're doing with characters for item pulls. We can say, okay, we're on this seed right now. We can look ahead into the seed's future and say, okay, how many rolls, how many like steps away is this item pull? And that's what this number here is, this little interval. It'll tell us like the item is 200 rolls away or 159 rolls away. Okay, so that's kind of how this interface is working. But what about this stuff? What about this stuff at the bottom here? So I showed you this part where we're predicting the next character. You also notice that this number is updating as well. It shows you the next character and it shows you a different seed. And that's because when you roll the RNG and consume seeds, the RNG algorithm will advance the seed a certain number of rolls depending on what you did to call the RNG. And it turns out that character rolls calls the RNG function 2 times. It consumes 2 rolls. So what we could do is we see, okay, the next bomb is in 159 rolls. We could go like 2, 4, 6, 8 and count it out one by one all the way there. That would work. It's just very slow. And so we have this thing to help us out and speed things up. And so if you go in here, you can keep your eye on that seed at the bottom right. You'll see that as I move around and play the game, there's like almost everything that I do is causing that number to go crazy. I can, you know, dash and run around and jump. The number, the seed gets advanced by almost every action that is performed in game. And some of those, like the random character roll, do the same number of rolls every single time. Things like jumping, things like up smash, things like up tilt will always consume the same number of rolls, which is how we compute this sequence to just basically add up one by one different actions to get us there. All right. Which speeds up the process a lot and helps us get a faster iteration on our roll attempts. And really all you're doing is just jumping ahead in this like long sequence of predetermined number, like seeds and characters to get where you want to go and make sure that, you know, the tool here accurately reflects what's happening inside the game. All right, so before I go into how to, you know, improve your consistency, some tips and tricks, I kind of want to just take a quick tour of the tool itself and, you know, make sure we go over all the features that are available to you and, you know, make sure things are familiarized. So up at the top here, we have our item select. This is where you configure what you want to be minipping for. So we have the different item pulls for Peach, Beam Sword, Bob-omb, or Mr. Saturn. There's also this fourth option, which is a double stitch window for Home Run Contest. There's also this checkbox here to enable mismatch. By default, the tool is configured just for Peach on Peach's stage, just vanilla Peach. But there's other mismatch things available, so you can click on that to enable those. You can see there's different options here, whether it's a grounded or aerial spawn mismatch, and there's a little link here that kind of directs you to an explanation of those. Luigi has a different configuration, as does Seek, and so those are different things you can check. You're already associated with the CSS, where you can click the characters and they appear. There's also these two buttons on the side you're going to get to. There's an undo button, just in case you mess up. And if you mess up a lot, there's the clear button to get rid of everything. There's this manual seed entry, just in case, you know, you have maybe like a save state, you're testing something, you can put in, you know, something that you know ahead of time to get the actions you got from there. And there's also this reset button. And what this basically does is it just clears everything. So you have this current seed, where normally you're kind of, you know, you're tracking along and you're walking along this predetermined sequence. Reset just says, you know what, like, take me back to the beginning of time. It now requires 9 characters again to find, you know, the fingerprint location. And it's as if basically you visit a page, you know, for the first time. It keeps your settings that you configure. It just resets the seed. Yeah, so that's the tool itself. So now let's talk like consistency and tricks and, you know, things to be aware of, things that are maybe a little niche that, you know, takes like experience with the minute process, because although it is consistent and it is like, you know, deterministic, there are, you know, nuances and catches and things that can, you know, go wrong. It's you're a human controlling a game, you know, there's prone to error, and I've definitely, you know, run into my fair share of missed pulls, and so we're just going to go over some things to help prevent that and what to do when things go wrong. So the first thing I'll call out is you want to make sure when you're manipping, you're not consuming accidental rolls. And the best way to do that is just to like stay crouching between your actions. Usually it's not a problem because it takes a long time for the idle pose to activate, but you'll notice if you look at that bottom right RNG call, it advances even though I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing here as Peach. Turns out Peach calls the RNG by herself just by doing nothing. And so the safest way to avoid that is just by crouching in between your actions. Another thing to be wary of is to let all of the visual effects and visual animations finish before exiting out. So let's say I was doing a down smash right here. You notice there's like these dust clouds. You don't want to exit out of your manip while those are still dissipating. You want to give them plenty of time to go away and dissipate. You know, 3 or 4 frames, however many it takes to make sure the things are finishing up is well worth the pull. So whether it, you know, be a forward air, you want to make sure those are all auto-canceled. jumping and landing, all this dust effects. You want to make sure those have enough time to finish before moving on. Another thing that can be hard to get used to is you want to make sure that you're doing your actions slowly. You're not trying to rush the manip. There are some things like double jump, for example, where double jump takes a few frames to consume all of its RNG rolls. But for example, with Peach, if you do something too quickly at a double jump, you double jump cancel. And that actually interrupts the RNG and doesn't, it causes your roll count to be off. So you want to make sure when you're doing things that are chained actions that you're not doing them too quickly as to interrupt the roll profiles. And that combined with, crouching between is pretty much all you need. I will note one more gotcha, which is has to do with shield, which is a deterministic action. Shield always consumes 9 rolls, and sometimes shield will be the last thing you have to do. I will note to be careful not to hold that shield press into your next attempt, because that will actually cause the RNG to be called for the alternate music. So just be careful when you're doing this manip, and if you're hitting Z, just don't carry over any more button presses. Just make sure you're not holding anything down before you go into your pull. That's pretty much it for these tips. So I want to talk a little bit about how to help yourself and how to diagnose when things are going wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna find my seed really quick, and we'll just kind of demonstrate some stuff. Doing our favorite of the first of the 2 steps, finding the seed. Here, cool. So here we are, and I'm going to let's pretend like we did a poll, we pretended like did a run, we called some RNG, all this cool stuff, right? So what happened now is we found our place, we advanced the seed a bunch, and we're somewhere out in the void, right? And we need to find where we are. So I'm gonna make a save state here, and we'll demonstrate kind of how things can go wrong and how to diagnose it. So what's the first step? The first step is finding the seed. Let's say I'm entering my characters. Oh my gosh, that was insane. Okay, so let's say I'm entering my characters, and let's say for some reason I did Fox instead of Falco, right? Maybe I was just clicking too fast. Maybe I just heard the F sound come from the mouse's mouth, and I was like, it's Fox, and I click Fox. Whatever the case, let's say I just clicked that on accident and I click search. This succeeds because somewhere in here, maybe there is a Game Watch Fox, right? But the seed is incorrect. It's desynced from the game's actual seed. It does not accurately reflect what the game seed is. And so what this means is if I go and do my actions now, if I say, okay, cool, charge up smash times 1, easy, up smash, standing grab, my pull is going to fail. This will not be a bomb. Holy crap, it's a 7. That's insane. Okay, well, it wasn't a bomb is the point. That's actually ridiculous. But anyways, so it got out of sync. And so that can be problematic when you're trying to go for these pulls, because now the seed is somewhere way out here. We have no idea what's happening. If you start to miss pulls, or if you miss more in a row, something you can always do is enter in more characters to make it harder for you to accidentally do something that happens that's not your true seed. So here I'm going to enter in a few more. Like Marth, Zelda, Ganondorf. Let's keep going. Mario, Falco, Jigglypuff, Pichu. Now I click search. Aha. So it failed. So now the desync is manifested. So what happens is this means that the tool doesn't know where we are, basically. We're out in space. It doesn't, it's kind of lost track. And so we're going to click this reset button to kind of get us back to ground zero. And so now it's back. We need to give our 9 character fingerprint to find, where we are and kind of realign ourselves. And that original desync can happen a lot of ways. It can happen by, either misclicking the character screen. It can happen by maybe, we have some action sequence here. Maybe, I only do 1 up tilt instead of 2, and that gets me off. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but the methodology to get back on track is just to do more characters than is required. And if it succeeds, you'll be synced up. And if it fails, you can always just click reset. So yeah, just tie everything together and put things into perspective. All you need for Manip, the only tools you need is a copy of Melee Running and this site. It could be on console or emulator. There's no difference. Those are all things you need at hand to pull whatever item you want. And each manip itself consists of two parts. The first being entering in your random character sequence to find your seed. And then once your seed is found, performing the specified action sequence in-game to advance the seed to where your pole is. And that's it. You repeat that process over and over and over again to do attempts to find items to get your runs. That's it. Anyways, yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Hope to see some cool runs come out of this. And yeah, good luck, everybody.